Hello, hello, nonprofit changemakers, and welcome to Module 1. This is the fundraising shift and creating a strategy that works. I'm so excited for you guys to join the Momentum Fundraising Method. I am Grace Bashar, and I'm so excited to dive into the foundations of fundraising with you. If you've ever felt like fundraising is a constant uphill battle where you're juggling grants, applications, and trying to attract corporate sponsors and keeping donors engaged while wearing 100 other hats, you are not alone. We all have felt this way. But the good news is fundraising doesn't have to feel like this. And so that is why you're here, right? And in this module, we're going to be covering the core pillars of nonprofit fundraising. We're really starting at the basics right now so that you can build a revenue mix that's both sustainable and scalable. We're also going to talk about how to measure fundraising ROI and craft messaging that actually excites donors and sponsors. And so you don't have to waste valuable time on strategies that aren't moving the needle. And so by the end of this module, you will understand the 4 types of nonprofit funding. You'll shift your mindset around fundraising from scarcity and begging to confidence and strategy. You'll understand the big picture of fundraising and the ecosystem. You'll identify your funding gaps and opportunities, and you'll create a clear fundraising goal for the next 6 months. And so we will also have a clear donor messaging strategy that makes people excited to support you. And just be able to focus is the biggest thing. And what to focus on. And so let's jump into part 1. Welcome to part 1. So part 1, we are going to look over the 4 types of funding. And that is grants, corporate, major and mid-level donors, which is individual donations, individuals, and also grassroots giving. So think about crowdfunding, peer-to-peer, monthly giving programs. That is grassroots. So the number one fundraising mistake I see nonprofits make is most nonprofits rely too heavily on grants, and that's a problem. Grants takes too long. It's 6 months plus processing. It's highly competitive and unpredictable. It often comes with restrictions on how they can use the money. And so there's a better approach, a multi-stream fundraising strategy that includes corporate partnerships, individual donors, reoccurring donor campaigns, media sponsorships. There's so many different ways that you can also recruit funding, and it doesn't have to be just by grants. So let's talk about the 4. The first one we're going to talk about is grants. And you got to think about grants as being the long game. So what is it? It's money awarded by governments, foundations, or corporations. They can also have grants for specific projects or general support. The pros of it, it's large sums of money. It's potentially for multi-year funding. But the cons is it's highly competitive, long approval process, about 6 to 12 months, and it's often restricted use. So you have this huge process. You're spending hours and hours on this for a 50-50 chance that you might get it in 6 to 12 months later. It's definitely not all you want to rely on. So when do you focus on grants? If you have the capacity for long-term planning and the ability to measure impact for funders, they want to have a lot of information. So as long as you have a lot of information, go for the grants. So grants, I don't want to deter you away from grants because it's important that we have a diverse amount of funding, right? And so grants should just be one part of your strategy, not the whole thing. So too many nonprofits spend months writing proposals only to get rejected, and they haven't done anything else besides apply for that one grant. So instead, I teach my clients to focus on faster wins like corporate sponsorships while working on grants in the background. So the key tip here is don't stop applying for grants, but let's diversify. You applied for that grant. Now what? What do we do in the meantime of that wait? Corporate sponsorships or corporate partnerships, you can also call it organizations. So this could be even a mixture of churches or different types of groups that aren't linked to a grant specific. It's just groups that could make a donation, maybe, yeah, maybe they're churches, maybe they're corporations, maybe they're small businesses, maybe they're a part of a club. It could be a lot of things. But let's focus on the corporate. So, corporate is faster, it's less restrictive funding. You'll know pretty right away if it's a yes or a no. So, you're not spending too much time wondering, but you can get a yes or no. It could be substantial funding, it could be $1,000, it could be um, it's amazing. So there's so much to it. But what is it? So businesses financially support your nonprofit in exchange for brand exposure, employee engagement, and or CSR, so corporate social responsibility benefits. What are the pros? It's quicker than grants, it's often unrestricted funds, there's opportunities for long-term partnerships. There's lots of other pros to it, which we'll dive deeper in on another module. But you can tap into their individuals, their employee engagement, recruiting volunteers and subscribers and advocates and um, more donors. And so, there's so much great things. The cons is it requires strong relationship building and a clear value proposition for the company. So you really have to be able to clearly show what is the benefit for them. So when do you focus on corporate sponsorships? If you can position your nonprofit as a valuable brand partner and offer companies meaningful benefits, that is when you should focus on them, which even if you don't feel like you have that right now, that's why you're here. We're going to craft that. We're going to make it a yes proposal. So think about this, like most fundraisers assume only big nonprofits get corporate sponsors, but that is not true. Small and mid-sized nonprofits actually have a huge advantage because they can offer community impact, storytelling, and brand alignment. So I'll teach you exactly how to package your nonprofit to land sponsorships in a later module. Number 3, individuals. That could be called major and mid-level giving. Major donors is really your sustainable ROI strategy. Corporate is sustainable too. It all should be sustainable, but major donors is a little bit different. So what is it? It's individuals who give large gifts, typically $1,000 to 100,000 plus to support your nonprofit. So depending on what your current donors are, maybe a major donor to you is $500. Maybe it's $5,000. Depending on where you're at in your organization, that can kind of shift. It really just depends on who you have in your portfolio, and then you consider that a major gift. So some of the pros is that it's high impact giving. It's fewer restrictions. Again, individual giving is non-restricted funds. We want the most non-restricted funds we can do. That is the most important. Grants are always primarily restricted funds. And so you just don't have as much leeway to be able to use it in the way that you need in the moment. It's also an opportunity for ongoing relationships. So some cons, and I wouldn't necessarily call this a con, but it requires relationship building. And let me tell you, if you don't know this already, fundraising is all about relationship building. So no matter what, you really can't get away from relationship building. But on when it comes to individuals, it takes a little bit more. It takes a little bit more personalized stewardship, checking in with them, including them, keeping them up to date, making sure that they understand how much they're valued and how grateful you are for them to be a partner and donor of them. So when to focus on major donors, if you can cultivate personal connections and show them the direct impact of their gift, that is when you should do it. We should be doing all of these things all the time. So it's not really a matter of when, but but we'll talk about that in another mod in the next in part two, where we're talking about where to spend your energy while we're building this strategy. So one major donor can fund an entire program. Instead of chasing small dollar donations, focus on finding about 5 to 10 supporters who believe in your mission. It's not about begging, it's about inviting people into your vision. And lastly, let's talk about grassroots giving. So, grassroots is the power of community support. What is it? It's small, reoccurring gifts from individual donors, and it's often through crowdfunding, peer to peer fundraising, or a monthly giving program. So think about the pros. The pros is it builds community engagement. It's less reliant on large funders. So if you lose like 5 of them, it's not as big of a deal as you losing one major funder, whether it's corporate or it's individual. And it has the potential to have a viral impact. The cons is it requires a very heavy lifting and consistent marketing and donor engagement. So when you're thinking about grassroots, it's really a one to many approach. It's a very high marketing approach. So, but the positive of it is, and we always need to do this, right? Because this is where you build email subscribers, you build volunteers, you build advocates, you build all these different things that in the long term you grow into becoming donors or monthly donors. And if they are monthly donors, you're growing them to be higher donors, to be major donors. And so you can also utilize this really grassroots, this community support for marketing to corporations. So it all mixes together. What I mean by that is say you have 1,000 email subscribers or 1,500 or 5,000. That's what you utilize to market to corporate. So when you partner with me, we'll also be including you in our email campaigns to over 1,500 email subscribers in our network, or 10,000 followers on our social media. So those are great ways to market to get corporate partners. And then when to focus on grassroots giving. If you want predictable, reoccurring revenue from a large base of passionate supporters, that is when you do it. So you think about grassroots giving as like planting seeds. You're building a movement, not just raising money. When done right, this strategy can create a steady stream of donations and a strong base of advocates for your cause. So just remember, grassroots, it's like planting seeds, and we want that to sprout. So here is the end to part one. I want you to identify your funding gaps. So what is your primary funding source currently right now? Are you overly dependent on one type? And what new funding streams could you explore? Write those down and share it in the community. I would love to see where you guys are all at. And that's what we can also focus on in our group meeting. So I will see you guys there. Thank you. And I hope this was impactful for you.